The Giant's Causeway on the coast of Northern Ireland is one of the UK's outstanding natural features. Its steep cliffs and deep bays form a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Along the jagged cliffs of County Antrim, where the restless waves of the North Atlantic crash against black stone, the Giant's Causeway rises like a puzzle scattered by giants themselves. Over 40,000 interlocking basalt columns, some over 12 metres tall, stretch from the cliffs into the sea, forming a geometric mosaic that has captivated visitors for centuries. This is one of Ireland's most iconic wonders, and it has invited countless myths and stories. Now, rumours have surfaced again that Irish archaeologists have finally opened the moving stone door, and what came out shocked everyone. So, what is the reality? Today, we'll demystify everything. The Giant's Causeway. The Giant's Causeway consists of roughly 40,000 interlocking columns of basalt. Most of these columns are hexagonal, though shapes with 4, 5, 7, or even 8 sides appear among them. They range dramatically in size, from short, squat stones underfoot to towering monoliths rising over 12 meters high, where cliff faces loom above the Atlantic. For centuries, people in the region walked these strange stepping stones and wondered at their origin. The earliest documented discovery by the scientific community came in 1693, when Sir Richard Bulkeley presented a paper on the formation to the Royal Society in London. In the 18th century, the Irish artist Susanna Drury captured the causeway's dramatic columns in watercolours, so compelling that they won awards and were engraved and published internationally. By the 19th century, the causeway had become a magnet for visitors. The arrival of the railway in the 1850s and the opening of the world's first hydroelectric tramway in 1883 brought travellers from across Britain to walk upon those interlocking stones and gaze out over the ragged Atlantic. In 1961, the landscape was entrusted to the National Trust, and by 1986, it had earned UNESCO World Heritage Site status as the first such designation in Northern Ireland, recognised for its outstanding universal value and its role in shaping our scientific understanding of geological processes. Today, the Giant's Causeway remains a place where science and myth intertwine. Nearly 1 million visitors walk its pathways each year. Myths and legends surround this site. Today, we'll look at all such stories from local folklore, and that moving stone door as well. Did Fionn mac Cumhail build the causeway? Locals have told stories here for centuries, stories that move with the wind and the surf. They speak of a giant named Fionn mac Cumhail, known in English as Finn MacCool, striding across the sea, building a pathway of black stone to confront a rival giant in Scotland named Benandonna. In one version, the two giants clash in a thunderous battle across the ocean waves.
Finn was one of the great characters in Irish mythology, or if you like, Irish fact. He had a problem with a Scottish giant.
In another, more cunning tale, Fionn's clever wife wraps him in blankets and places him in a cradle. When Benandonna glimpses the presumed infant, he imagines the size of the father and flees in terror, tearing apart the stone bridge behind him as he runs. For generations, this legend gave human-scale meaning to an alien landscape, a way to explain the staggeringly regular hexagonal columns that rise from the cliffs and cascade into the sea. Standing atop the causeway today, with the Atlantic crashing below, it is easy to imagine the footfalls of a giant echoing across the stone, each step leaving behind a geometric imprint of black basalt. To a culture without scientific explanations, the story of Fionn offered a narrative bridge over the impossible, transforming a bewildering natural formation into a tale of bravery, trickery, and survival. Archaeologists and historians, however, tell a different story. There is no evidence of giants or human-like builders anywhere along the causeway. Humans have known about the site for millennia, but the earliest recorded scientific attention came in 1693, when Sir Richard Bulkeley presented observations to the Royal Society in London. His report sparked intense curiosity across Europe. By the late 18th century, geologists, including Nicolas Desmarest, began connecting the causeway's structure to volcanic processes, comparing it with similar basalt formations in France. Their work helped establish a revolutionary idea. These columns were not carved by hands or giants. The columns are made of basalt, a volcanic rock formed roughly 50 to 60 million years ago during the Paleogene period. At that time, intense volcanic activity in what is now Northern Ireland caused rivers of lava to surge across valleys, reaching temperatures of more than 1,200 degrees Celsius. As the lava cooled rapidly, it contracted, fracturing into perfectly interlocking polygons, most commonly hexagons, though some have 4, 5, or 7 sides. There was no human or giant intervention, no careful chiseling. The work of nature alone produced the roughly 40,000 columns we see today. Some stretch over 12 meters high. They create a pathway that seems eerily deliberate, yet it is entirely accidental in its perfection. Are the columns part of a bridge? Some say that these columns were hurled into the Atlantic to form a bridge to Scotland, a pathway for Titans to meet across the water. From the cliffs of Northern Ireland, the stepping stone pattern really does appear to march straight into the sea, vanishing beneath the waves as though the bridge simply continues underwater. To early observers, the idea felt logical. The stones looked too orderly, too deliberate, too perfectly fitted together to be random. A bridge seemed like the only explanation that matched the scale and symmetry. The reality, however, is rooted in geology rather than mythology. The basalt columns do not form a continuous bridge. Instead, they are part of a vast volcanic plateau that once covered large parts of the North Atlantic region. Around 50 to 60 million years ago, enormous lava flows spread across what is now Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. These eruptions were part of the same geological system that shaped both coastlines. As the lava cooled and contracted, it fractured into the distinctive polygonal columns seen today. Evidence of this shared volcanic history still exists. On the Scottish island of Staffa, the famous Fingal's Cave contains nearly identical basalt columns. The resemblance is striking. Same dark rock, same geometric shapes, same towering formations rising from the sea. This similarity helped early geologists realize that the formations on both sides of the water were created by the same volcanic events, not by a giant-built bridge. What appears to be a pathway across the ocean is actually the eroded remains of a once continuous lava field, broken apart over millions of years by tectonic shifts, rising seas, and relentless coastal erosion. So, while the bridge never truly existed as a constructed path, the legend contains a poetic grain of truth. The Causeway and the Scottish basalt formations were once connected, not by giants, but by rivers of molten rock stretching across an ancient landscape. But wait, there's more. Do the stones have magical or supernatural properties? Some claim that stepping on certain columns could bring good luck or protection, while others say that if you listen closely on a still night, the stones would hum or whisper, secrets carried from the deep past. Tourists walking the interlocking hexagons could almost feel the thrill of the unknown. Travelers in the 18th century, inspired by artist Susanna Drury's watercolors that captured the columns in stark, dramatic contrast, were drawn to the site not only for its beauty, but also for the mythical aura it carried. Legends grew with every retelling. Some columns were said to grant fortune to farmers, others whispered warnings about the coming storm. Tour guides in the 19th and 20th centuries added their own embellishments, telling visitors that the Causeway was alive, responding to human presence, its ancient basalt heartbeat pulsing in rhythm with the ocean waves. Human brains are wired to search for intention and meaning, especially when confronted with unusual symmetry in nature. Perfectly interlocking hexagons, rising in orderly stacks from the sea, do not look random. To early visitors, long before geology explained volcanic cooling, such precision suggested purpose. When you combine that visual shock with the thunder of Atlantic waves, echoing cliffs, and shifting winds, the setting naturally encourages mystical interpretation. In pre-scientific societies, unexplained natural phenomena were often explained through folklore, spirituality, or superstition. Assigning luck, protection, or warnings to the stones made the landscape emotionally understandable and culturally meaningful. As tourism grew, so did storytelling. Visitors arrived already primed to expect wonder, and guides, seeking to entertain and captivate, often embellished local folklore. Over decades, tales evolved. Some columns brought luck, others warned of storms, and the site itself was said to respond to human presence. This is a classic example of folklore expanding alongside tourism, where storytelling enhances visitor experience and strengthens cultural identity. Science, however, offers clear explanations for the sensations people interpreted as supernatural. The idea that the stones hum or whisper can be traced to natural acoustics. The Causeway's cliffs, caves, and hexagonal columns create complex echo chambers. Wind moving through gaps between columns can produce low-frequency tones, whistles, or vibrations. When waves crash against the basalt, they send vibrations through the rock and surrounding air, generating sounds that can resemble distant humming or murmuring, especially at night, when background noise is low and human hearing becomes more sensitive to subtle sounds. Similar acoustic effects occur in sea caves and rocky coastlines worldwide. The belief in luck or protective powers is rooted in cultural psychology, not physical properties. Basalt is simply a dense volcanic rock composed mainly of minerals. It does not emit energy, change human fortune, or respond to touch. Scientific measurements show no unusual radiation, magnetic activity, or vibrations beyond those caused by natural environmental forces like wind, waves, and temperature changes. Similarly, any stories of glowing or unusual heat signatures are either misperceptions caused by sunlight, dampness, or temperature contrasts between wet and dry rock. Archaeologists and geologists from the British Geological Survey and the National Trust, which has managed the site since 1961, have repeatedly confirmed the basalt's physical stability and natural origin. What remains is the thrill of legend. The stories of luck, whispers, and magic endure not because of mystical forces, but because the Causeway is otherworldly in appearance. Over 40,000 basalt columns, some over 12 meters tall, stretch toward the Atlantic in impossible geometric precision, their jagged edges and interlocking forms conjuring wonder and imagination. In truth, the magic lies in the astonishing natural engineering of Earth itself, a volcanic masterpiece forged millions of years ago, yet so perfectly arranged that humans have long felt it might be something more. Do the stones move or change over time? Visitors often pause, scanning the seemingly endless pattern of hexagonal stones stretching into the North Atlantic, and some swear that on quiet nights the columns appear to shift slightly, realigning themselves as if alive. Tales tell of the Causeway reshaping while the world sleeps, stones moving under the cover of darkness, mysterious echoes of the giants who supposedly built it. The very idea sends a shiver through the imagination. What if the ground beneath your feet was not as solid as it appeared? These legends grew over centuries, fueled by the Causeway's dramatic appearance. With over 40,000 basalt columns, many rising more than 12 meters high, interlocking in almost mathematical precision, it is easy to see how human perception might transform minor shifts into stories of nightly movement. Travelers in the 18th and 19th centuries described the site as an animated wonder, where the stones seemed to have a rhythm, a pulse of their own. Folklore took hold. Perhaps the giants still walked among the columns at night, adjusting their stepping stones for the next crossing to Scotland, or maybe the Causeway itself was a living thing, slowly repositioning over the centuries. The reality, however, is rooted firmly in geology, not magic. Basalt is incredibly stable, with a compressive strength typically exceeding 100 megapascals, meaning it is far too solid to move on its own. For the Causeway's stones to shift without human intervention would require tectonic upheaval or catastrophic erosion, events measured in millions of years, not nights. Minor changes do occur, but they are entirely explainable by natural forces. Storms and heavy seas erode the edges of columns, occasionally causing small rockfalls along cliff faces or isolated stones to topple. Freeze-thaw cycles and rain slowly wear down the basalt, altering its surface over centuries. Even the natural acoustics of wind moving through gaps between the columns can give the impression of movement. Scientists from the British Geological Survey and the National Trust, which has managed the Causeway since 1961, have confirmed that the columns are stable and unmoving in any practical sense, with only slow, incremental changes attributable to natural erosion. The allure of movement persists, however. Standing on the Causeway during a storm, waves crashing and wind bending over the jagged stones, it is easy to sense life in the columns. The columns themselves, with their interlocking geometry and dramatic coastline setting, create optical illusions that shift with perspective, and shadows play tricks on the eye, hinting at motion where there is none. The The Giant's Causeway does not walk, shift, or realign itself. Its movement is a story our imagination has written on the backdrop of Earth's fiery past. The reality of moving stone doors and hidden chambers.
The lava that was erupted very, very quickly, and the flows were very, very thick. Basically, if you picture, like wet mud on a hot day, the mud dries, and as it dries, it shrinks. And as it shrinks, you get cracks forming.
In recent years, a darker, more sensational story has taken hold online. Videos have gone viral claiming that a stone door within the causeway opens, revealing hidden chambers populated by 7 to 8 foot tall figures trapped inside the basalt for millions of years, their hollow shells glowing with heat and even pulsing with heartbeats. To a viewer unfamiliar with geology, it feels plausible. After all, the causeway is extraordinary, almost unnaturally regular, with over 40,000 basalt columns rising from sea level to more than 12 meters in some places. Yet, when examined with the tools of science, the story collapses entirely. Basalt is formed from molten lava cooling at roughly 1,200 degrees Celsius, a process that solidifies the rock into dense, interlocking columns. At those temperatures, organic material cannot survive. Any flesh, bone, or living creature would be instantly incinerated. Geologists and archaeologists who study the causeway confirm there are no hollow chambers, no doors, and certainly no ancient beings trapped within. Every crack, fissure, and crevice has been mapped and analysed, and none suggests a cavity of the kind described in viral videos. Moreover, we must also question whether giants existed. Long before modern science, people encountered enormous bones emerging from cliffs, riverbanks, and caves. Without knowledge of prehistoric animals, these fossils were interpreted as the remains of giants. Large mammal fossils, especially from extinct species such as mammoths, mastodons, and prehistoric whales, were often mistaken for human remains. Massive femurs and skull fragments found in Europe were described as proof of giant races in medieval chronicles. These interpretations were logical within the limits of knowledge at the time. When people saw bones far larger than any human, the simplest explanation was that giant humans once walked the earth. Psychology also plays a role. Humans are wired to detect agency and pattern. This tendency, called pattern recognition bias, helped our ancestors survive by quickly identifying threats or opportunities, but it also leads us to see intention where none exists. Perfectly shaped rock columns or massive fossil bones trigger the instinct to imagine creators or colossal beings. Folklore then spreads these ideas through storytelling, reinforcing them across generations. Giants became symbols used by cultures worldwide to explain dramatic landscapes, unusual rock formations, and the power of nature. The viral stone door story is a modern version of this ancient instinct. Looking beyond the myths. The Giant's Causeway rises from the northern coast of County Antrim like a black mosaic spilled across the cliffs, a network of perfectly interlocking columns stretching toward the North Atlantic. For centuries, humans have gazed at this formation in awe, and legends quickly followed. About 50 to 60 million years ago, during the Paleogene period, intense volcanic activity surged across what is now Northern Ireland. Rivers of molten basalt poured into valleys, reaching temperatures of over 1,200 degrees Celsius. As the lava cooled, it contracted and fractured, forming the distinctive hexagonal columns that create the causeway's striking stepping stone appearance. This process, known as thermal contraction cracking, is common in volcanic regions, producing natural geometric patterns. On the surface, they seem almost deliberately designed. Some columns rise over 12 meters tall. However, the majority are shorter. Together, they form a complex interlocking carpet of stone. Over millions of years, wind, rain, and the relentless Atlantic waves sculpted the cliffs, smoothing edges and deepening fissures. Erosion and weathering have shaped the causeway into its current dramatic form, enhancing its visual impact while steadily changing the landscape on a geological timescale. Today, over 1 million visitors annually walk these basalt steps, drawn by both the natural beauty and the rich tapestry of legends surrounding it. The National Trust, which has managed the site since 1961, ensures safety with barriers, warning signs, and restricted areas. These measures are meant to protect visitors from cliff erosion, rockfall, and unstable edges, not to conceal hidden chambers or secret passages. Public engagement extends beyond safety. Guided tours, visitor centres, and educational programs help visitors understand both the science and the folklore. In many ways, the myths themselves are a form of connection. Tales of giants building bridges, stepping stones left by colossal feet, and stones that hum at night offer a window into Irish storytelling, identity, and imagination, linking people to the land long before geology explained the processes. Scientific understanding does not diminish these stories. Knowing that lava flows, thermal contraction, and erosion created the causeway allows us to marvel at the planet's history, while the myths provide cultural depth, bridging the gap between human imagination and natural wonder. The Giant's Causeway is, at once, a geological marvel and a cultural landmark. Its precise columns, dramatic cliffs, and pathways into the Atlantic are evidence of Earth's fiery past, cooled into perfection by natural forces. Legends simply enrich this experience. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.